Picture a teenager sitting in his bedroom somewhere in Ohio, or Manchester, or Sydney, staring at a poster on his wall. The poster shows a silver Nissan Skyline GTR, low to the ground, aggressive, with wide fenders and the kind of presence that makes people stop walking and turn their heads. He has never been to Japan. He has never even sat inside a Skyline. But something about that car feels deeply personal to him. Something about it feels like home. Years later, that same person will spend his savings importing a right-hand drive car to a country where everyone drives on the left. His family will question his judgment. His bank account will suffer. And he will not regret a single moment of it. This is the psychology of people who are obsessed with JDM cars. JDM stands for Japanese Domestic Market. It refers to vehicles manufactured and originally sold in Japan, cars that were never officially exported to Western countries. The Toyota Supra, the Honda NSX, the Mazda RX-7, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, the Nissan Skyline. These machines carry a mythology that goes far beyond their mechanical specifications. To understand why certain people become deeply and sometimes obsessively drawn to these cars, one has to look beneath the surface of the hobby itself and into the deeper psychology of identity, cultural longing, and the human need for belonging.
And a Nissan Skyline.
People who become obsessed with JDM cars typically do not encounter them in real life first. They encounter them through a screen. The Fast and the Furious films of the early 2000s introduced a global generation to Japanese performance cars at an emotionally formative age. Video games like Gran Turismo and Need for Speed let teenagers drive virtual Skylines and RX-7s across digital highways long before they held a real driver's license. Anime series set the visual tone for a culture of modified Japanese cars that felt electric and rebellious and cinematic all at once. What this means psychologically is significant. The obsession often begins not with the object itself, but with the feeling the object represents. The car becomes a symbol before it becomes a machine. It carries an emotional charge that was installed during adolescence. During those years when identity is fragile and the search for meaning is urgent. There is a concept in psychology known as cultural romanticism. It refers to the idealization of a foreign culture in ways that emphasize its mystery, its beauty, and its distance from one's own ordinary reality. People who are drawn to JDM cars are frequently drawn not just to the vehicles themselves, but to the idea of Japan that surrounds them. The precision of Japanese engineering, the discipline and craftsmanship embedded in cars like the original Honda S2000 or the Mazda MX-5, the street racing culture of Yokohama and Tokyo that exists somewhere between fact and legend, the winding mountain roads of Hakone, where drivers have tested machines at the edge of possibility for decades. None of this has to be experienced directly to feel real. The mythology is powerful enough on its own.
Yet feels its presence.
This phenomenon parallels the way people romanticize other cultures through music, food, or fashion. Japan becomes a kind of psychological projection screen, a place onto which people map qualities they find missing or compelling. Order, precision, aesthetic restraint, the sense that things are built with genuine intention. Consider a young man named Ethan who grew up in a mid-sized city in the American Midwest. His neighborhood was unremarkable. His high school years were difficult. He felt like someone the world was not particularly designed for. At 15, he watched a film featuring a Japanese sports car navigating a rain-soaked mountain road at night, headlights cutting through the dark, the sound of the engine something between a scream and a song. He described that moment years later with the kind of language people use for experiences that change them. He said it felt like discovering a world that made sense. He spent the next decade learning everything he could about Japanese car culture. He taught himself mechanical skills by working on a used Honda Civic he bought for almost nothing. He saved carefully and eventually imported a Nissan S15, a car never officially sold in the United States. When asked what it meant to finally have it, he paused and said it felt like arriving somewhere he had been trying to reach for a long time.
It was incredible.
This kind of story reveals something important. The JDM obsession is often an identity obsession. The cars function as anchors for a self-concept that was built through years of emotional investment. Psychologists who study how people form attachments to objects suggest that possessions take on meaning through the experiences and emotions we associate with them. When an object carries 10 years of longing, learning, and aspiration, it becomes something much larger than its physical form. It becomes a piece of who you are. People who are deeply into JDM culture often describe these cars not as things they own, but as things they belong to. The direction of possession, psychologically speaking, can run both ways. The subculture that forms around JDM cars is one of the most tightly knit communities in the automotive world. At any gathering where these cars appear, whether a car show in London, a parking lot in Los Angeles or a private event in Tokyo, a very specific social structure becomes visible. Knowledge is the primary currency. The person who can identify a car's exact factory options, explain the engineering difference between two generations of the same engine, or trace the development history of a particular chassis is automatically respected. Status is not determined by wealth or profession. It is determined by depth of understanding and dedication to the culture. This alternative hierarchy is profoundly attractive to people who feel undervalued or overlooked in more conventional social structures. Psychologist Henry Tajfel developed social identity theory, the idea that people derive a significant part of their self-concept from the groups they belong to. Membership in the JDM community offers exactly what Tajfel described as a positive social identity, a sense that the group one belongs to is special, knowledgeable, and distinct from the mainstream. There is pride in knowing things that most people do not know.
Craftsmanship and understanding lead to achievement.
Fluency that outsiders simply cannot access. Walking through a JDM car meet and recognizing every model, understanding the significance of every modification, speaking the shared language of the culture.
This diagram shows how we categorize ourselves.
Produce a genuine psychological reward. The nostalgia element also deserves serious attention. Japanese performance cars from the late 1980s and 1990s exist in a very particular historical and emotional category. They were built during a period when Japanese engineering was producing some of the most technically ambitious and visually interesting vehicles in the world. They represent an era of mechanical honesty, cars that could be understood and worked on by human hands without specialized computer systems. Many JDM enthusiasts feel a deep sense of loss about the direction modern cars have taken, their increasing complexity, their gradual shift toward screens and automation and disconnection from the physical act of driving. The old Skyline or the old RX-7 represents driving in its most direct and unmediated form. Reaching for these machines is partly reaching for a vision of how things could still be. Research on nostalgia consistently shows that people turn to the past not because they want to live there, but because engaging with it provides psychological comfort in an uncertain present. The JDM car is a time machine, and the destination is a feeling rather than a year. There's also the mastery dimension that defines so much of what drives deeply committed enthusiasts. JDM cars are not simple objects. Understanding them properly, maintaining them, modifying them
Here is our stickman earning a mastery badge in JDM Obsession. This introduces the mastery dimension of JDM Obsession.
Turbocharged AWD systems, Japanese parts catalogs in a language many enthusiasts teach themselves to read at least partially. The learning never fully stops.
Knowledge takes years
this continuous journey toward competence provides something that psychologists
Let's examine this turbo and AWD drivetrain.
Motivation.
The turbo forces
the drive
more
to
air
do
into
something
the engine,
because the
and
activity
AWD delivers
itself
power
is
to all
rewarding,
wheels.
not because of external recognition or financial return. People who pour thousands of hours into understanding these machines are feeding a deep psychological need to become genuinely skilled at something meaningful to them.
Genuine skill development requires thousands of hours. Like sand in an hourglass, time must be poured into the process.
Japanese models over European or American ones. They are someone who found in a foreign automotive culture a kind of mirror, a reflection of values and aesthetics, and ways of thinking about precision and beauty and intention that resonated with something already inside them. The skyline on the bedroom wall was never just a car. It was a signal from an unknown world that a different kind of life was possible, one built around craft, community, and the particular joy of caring deeply about something most people walk past without noticing. The obsession is not about the machine. It is about what the machine makes possible in the mind of the person who loves it.